In the silent dark of space, a signal moved faster than light. It crossed stars, passed through dust and storms, and reached every human world. The message came from the Valar Dominion, the oldest and strongest empire in the galaxy. Their words were cold, spoken by a voice that was not human. To the people of Earth, you have reached beyond your place. You will stop all expansion and surrender your fleets. Disobedience means extinction. The message played on every screen, every radio, every ship. Children in schools stopped talking. Pilots froze in mid-flight. In 1 hour, all of humanity heard the same command: surrender. The Valar were not known for mercy. They had destroyed 10 worlds before breakfast. Their fleets were larger than cities. Their soldiers were machines of living metal. To most species, the Valar were gods. To humanity, they were strangers with power beyond imagination. Earth was still young in the stars. Only 70 years had passed since the first faster-than-light ship left the solar system. Humans had only 3 colonies and a few fleets made of recycled steel. Against the Dominion, they were nothing. At least, that's what the galaxy believed. But deep under the ruins of an old city, inside a command bunker made of stone and steel, a man listened quietly to the alien broadcast. His name was Admiral Reyes, the commander of Earth's defense fleet. He was not tall, not young, not shining like a hero from legend. He was a tired man who had seen too many wars. When the message ended, the room stayed silent. Officers stared at one another. Some looked afraid, some angry. No one spoke. Finally, Reyes stood up. He walked to the old world map hanging on the wall, a map that showed oceans and borders that no longer existed. He touched it gently, as if touching a memory. Then he turned and said in a voice steady as stone, "Tell the Empire, we don't surrender." The room froze. Someone dropped a cup. The echo of his words filled the bunker. "Admiral, with respect," one officer whispered, "they'll destroy us." Reyes looked at him and smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Maybe, but if we kneel today, our children will never stand again." His words carried through the hallways, through the comm lines, through every channel that still worked. They became the first order of the last human war. Above Earth, the sky was already changing. Telescopes showed Valar ships moving near the edge of the solar system, bright dots of blue and silver light. They looked beautiful, like falling stars. But everyone knew those stars carried death. Governments met in secret. Old enemies shared tables for the first time. From the deserts of Africa to the frozen bases on Mars, people began to prepare. Factories came alive again, burning through the night. Children learned how to hide in shelters. Soldiers polished weapons older than themselves. The narrator of time could have said humanity was afraid, but fear was not the right word. It was something stronger, a fire born from pride and pain. The Valar thought humans would beg for mercy. Instead, they found silence on every channel. No surrender message, no white flag. Only one repeated transmission from Earth: "We do not yield." Across the galaxy, other races watched the scene with disbelief. A minor species, barely out of its home system, was refusing the most powerful empire known. Whispers spread among the stars. "Who are these humans?" Meanwhile, in the bunker, Admiral Reyes stood alone by the window that looked at the night sky. He could see nothing, but he imagined the enemy ships already watching them. He thought of his family, of the planet beneath his feet, of the billions of lives depending on one choice. A young officer approached him. "Sir," she asked softly, "do you really think we can win?" Reyes did not answer right away. He watched a satellite pass overhead, a small dot crossing the clouds. Then he said, "A win? Maybe not, but they will remember us. That's enough." Outside, the first alarms began to sound. The invasion was coming. Lights blinked red across the bunker. Reyes turned toward the operations table. "Prepare every ship. Wake the fleets. Tell them humanity stands." The officer saluted, her hands shaking, then ran to deliver the order. Far above the clouds, the stars seemed to flicker, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The message had been sent. The choice had been made, and somewhere in the darkness the Valar Dominion received their answer. An answer that no empire had ever heard before. When the empire ordered surrender, humans refused. The war for existence had begun. After the message from the empire, the world changed. No one talked about peace anymore. No one dreamed of calm skies. Every nation, every colony, every outpost in space began to prepare. It started with silence, a heavy silence that covered the Earth. Cities stopped celebrating. News channels spoke in whispers. The stars above looked peaceful, but everyone knew war was coming. The Valar Dominion had given humanity 7 days to surrender. 7 days before they would cleanse the solar system. The countdown began. Every second became precious. Admiral Reyes stood in the command center beneath the old city. The bunker walls shook with the sound of engines and drills. Humanity had started building. Weapons, ships, armor, and hope. The old governments joined hands. The United Earth Command was born, not from politics but from fear and pride. They called every soldier home, every pilot back to base. Even retired engineers returned to work, their hands trembling but determined. Factories that once made cars now made starship parts. Hospitals trained new medics every hour. Children painted the Earth flag on walls and helmets. Everyone wanted to help. Everyone knew this was their fight. In orbit, shipyards came alive. Rusty machines that had been quiet for years suddenly glowed with power. Old ships were pulled out of storage and repaired. Some were so old they still had rust on their wings, but they would fly again. Reyes walked among the workers. He saw men and women who had never held a weapon before, now working with fire and steel. He spoke softly to them. Every bolt, every wire, every drop of sweat counts. This is our wall against the storm. The workers nodded. No one complained. No one asked for rest. In orbit around Mars, fleets gathered. The first defense line, a mixture of old military ships and new prototypes. Their names were simple: Courage, Hope, Iron Dawn, Freedom. Each name carried a story. The Valar were watching from afar. Their long-range scanners saw the human movement, the gathering of ships, the heat of factories. To them it looked foolish, a young species trying to fight gods. But the Valar did not understand humanity. They did not understand the power of desperation. While the Empire laughed, Earth prepared quietly. No music, no speeches, no cheering, just work. It was the silence before the storm. Reyes met with the leaders of the colonies. The connection flickered, showing faces from Mars, Europa, and Titan. They all looked tired but ready. "We cannot match their numbers," said one commander. "Their fleet is 1,000 times larger." "Then we make them fight us one by one," Reyes replied. "We use the dark. We use the cold. We use everything they don't expect." That became the plan, a Project Valkyrie. A desperate idea. A network of hidden bases, stealth ships, and decoy signals to confuse the Valar. If humanity couldn't win by strength, it would win by cleverness. On the 4th day, Reyes walked into a small room where an old woman sat surrounded by screens. She was Dr. Hannah Lay, a scientist once banned for her dangerous experiments. Now she worked for him. "You said you could give me something to turn the tide," Reyes said. She looked up, eyes glowing with tired excitement. "I can give you light, Admiral. A weapon the Valar have never seen." She called it the Iron Shield. It wasn't finished, it wasn't safe, but it might protect Earth for a few hours. Reyes agreed without hesitation. "A few hours might be enough," he said. By the 6th day, Earth's night sky shone with moving lights, the fleets assembling above. Families stood outside their homes and watched the glowing trails of ships leaving the planet. Some cried, some saluted. Everyone understood. Not all those ships would return. In one of those ships, a young pilot named Tessa Morgan whispered a small prayer before takeoff. She had never been to space before, but she wanted her children to grow up free, even if she didn't survive. As her ship lifted, the radio crackled. Admiral Reyes's voice filled every channel. "This is not a war of conquest. This is a war of memory. We fight not to rule the stars, but to prove we deserve to be among them." The fleet responded with a single word: "Aye, Admiral." 7 days had passed. The countdown reached 0. On the outer edge of the solar system, strange blue lights appeared. The Valar were here. Thousands of ships, silent, perfect, unstoppable. Earth's defenses activated. The Iron Shield began to hum. Engines roared. Guns locked on target. Admiral Reyes stood before the tactical map, eyes fixed on the incoming swarm. He whispered to himself, almost like a promise, "Let them come. We are ready." And in the endless dark of space, the second chapter of humanity's greatest story began. The stars over Saturn burned brighter than ever. The great rings glowed like rivers of ice, stretching across the dark sky. And hidden inside those rings, the first human fleet waited. The Valar ships had entered the solar system. Their approach was silent. No signals, no warning. Just the cold movement of something enormous. From the command ship Resolute, Admiral Reyes watched the scanner display. The enemy appeared as a wall of blue light, spreading like fire through the void. Thousands of Valar warships, elegant, smooth, made of living metal, moved with perfect formation. The Valar believed this battle would be over in minutes. To them, humans were ants standing before a storm. But the humans had chosen their battlefield well. Titan, Saturn's largest moon, was covered in thick orange mist. Beneath that mist the human fleet hid, engines cold, signals silent, waiting for the order. The rings above scattered radar and sensors, confusing the Valar scanners. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Reyes stood by the command table, his face lit by red lights. Every officer in the room looked tense but focused. The radio crackled softly. Then came the voice of Captain Morgan from the Iron Dawn. "Admiral, their vanguard is entering the rings. 30 minutes until contact." Reyes nodded slowly. "Hold position. No one fires until my mark." Outside, the fleet drifted silently through the darkness. Ships the size of buildings floated beside chunks of frozen rock. The quiet was unbearable, the kind of silence that feels alive. Inside every ship, hearts beat fast. Pilots whispered to themselves. Some prayed. Some cursed. Everyone waited. Then the first Valar ship broke through the rings, a shining spear of light scanning the darkness. It passed close to a human destroyer. Not seeing it, the crew held their breath. Reyes watched the screen. The Valar ships were moving deeper now, hundreds of them perfectly aligned. He pressed his hand on the table and gave the order. "All ships, open fire." The darkness exploded. Missiles, railguns, and plasma torpedoes filled the void. Rocks shattered, ships burned, and the silence of space was broken by war. The first Valar ships were torn apart before they even raised shields. Humanity's trap had worked. Dozens of alien vessels were destroyed in the opening seconds. The shockwave lit up Saturn's rings like fire, but the Valar adapted fast. Their ships turned in perfect motion, forming a defensive wall. They fired beams of energy that cut through human cruisers like knives through paper. One by one, human ships exploded. The Freedom vanished in a burst of white light. The Iron Dawn lost half its engines but kept fighting. In the chaos, Admiral Reyes remained calm. "Focus fire on their command node," he ordered. "Break their control link." The humans targeted the largest ship, a floating fortress pulsing with blue energy. Hundreds of missiles slammed into it. The light around it flickered, then cracked. Reyes leaned forward. "Again, all guns!" The fortress exploded, sending fragments across the ring field. For the first time, the Valar fleet broke formation. Their perfect order shattered. Cheers erupted across human channels. For a few moments, it felt like victory, but the Valar were far from beaten. From behind Saturn's shadow, another wave of ships appeared, bigger, faster, deadlier. They fired in unison. Human ships vanished one after another. In the control room, red lights flashed. "We're losing the left flank," shouted an officer. "Shield generators failing." Reyes didn't move. His voice stayed steady. "Pull back to Titan, make them chase us." The remaining ships dove into Titan's thick atmosphere, disappearing into the orange haze. The Valar followed, and inside that haze, humanity had one last surprise. Dr. Hanale's creation, the Iron Shield, inactivated. A storm of magnetic energy filled Titan's sky. Lightning arcs danced between the clouds, blinding sensors and disabling enemy systems. Half the Valar fleet crashed into each other, lost in the chaos. The human ships fired from below, turning the clouds into fire. Reyes gripped the console, watching his ships burn and fight at the same time. "This is it," he whispered. "Give them everything." The final hour of the battle was pure madness. No formation, no tactics, only survival. When the storm finally cleared, both sides were broken. Titan's surface was littered with wreckage, human and Valar alike. Only a few human ships still moved. The Resolute drifted through the smoke, its hull cracked and engines dying. But they were alive. A weak voice came through the radio. "Admiral, they're retreating." Reyes closed his eyes. For the first time, he allowed himself a small smile. "They thought we would kneel," he said softly. "Now they know we can bleed them." In the distance, the surviving Valor ships turned and vanished into the black. The Battle of Titan's shadow was over. Humanity had not won, but they had not lost either. And for the first time in history, the galaxy saw something no one had ever imagined: the Empire's fleet retreating from humans. The smoke of war still drifted over Titan's sky. Wreckage floated among the rings of Saturn, silent graves of metal and fire. Half the human fleet was gone. Thousands were dead, and yet the impossible had happened. The Valor had retreated. Across the galaxy, news spread like wildfire. For the first time in history, the mighty Dominion had stepped back. To many alien worlds, it was a whisper of hope. To the Valor, it was an insult they could not forgive. While the Empire rebuilt its fleets, humanity buried its dead. Titan became a world of shadows and names. Each crater was a tomb. Each wrecked ship a story. Admiral Reyes stood among the ruins, watching smoke rise from what used to be a hangar. He could still smell burnt metal and frozen air. Around him, survivors moved quietly, fixing, cleaning, counting the lost. No one celebrated. They were alive, yes, but the cost had been heavy. A young soldier approached him, carrying a small metal tag. "Sir, we found her," the soldier said softly. Reyes looked down. The tag had a name: Tessa Morgan, the same pilot who had whispered a prayer before the battle. He closed his hand around the tag. "She fought well," he said. "She'll be remembered." The soldier nodded and walked away. Reyes stood alone in the frozen wind. For the first time, the weight of command pressed against him like stone. Far above, the remaining ships drifted in orbit. Repairs were slow. Supplies were low. But spirits were unbroken. In a small meeting chamber aboard the Resolute, the commanders gathered. The air smelled of oil and dust. Some wore bandages. Others had burns across their faces. But their eyes still burned with the same fire. Captain Morgan spoke first, her voice quiet but firm. "We hurt them, Admiral, badly, but they'll come back stronger," Reyes nodded. "Then we'll be ready. They think fear will break us. They don't understand fear is our fuel." Dr. Hannah Lay entered carrying a datapad. Her face was pale. Her hands shook slightly. "The iron shield worked," she said, "but it's unstable. It can't be used again unless we rebuild it." Reyes looked at her. "Can you rebuild it?" "With time," she said, "and materials we don't have." He sighed. "Then we find another way." Outside the ship, Earth's colonies sent desperate messages. Europa's domes were cracking under pressure. The Mars base was running out of oxygen. And from deep space, new Valor fleets were being sighted. The war wasn't over. It was only beginning. On the Valar homeworld, a council of lords met in a grand silver hall. The walls pulsed with living light. The Valar Emperor, tall, calm, and cold, listened as his generals argued. "The humans are reckless," one said. "They fight without logic. They fight without fear," another replied. "That makes them dangerous." The Emperor's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Then we erase their world. No negotiations, no mercy. I want Earth turned to dust." The generals bowed. The second invasion began. Back on Titan, Reyes stood before a small recorder, a black device covered in scratches. He pressed the button and spoke slowly. "To whoever finds this, we are still here. We have lost many, but not our will. If this is our end, let it be known." We stood. He paused, his eyes tired but proud. "They want to erase us because we refuse to kneel. Maybe that's how humanity was always meant to be, standing even when the sky falls." He turned off the recorder. Dr. Hannah Lay entered the room quietly. "Admiral," she said, "we intercepted a Valor transmission. They're preparing a final strike, straight at Earth." Reyes didn't speak for a moment. He just looked out the window at the distant blue planet glowing far away. "Then we don't wait for them," he said finally. "We take the fight to their home." The officers thought he was joking, but his face told them otherwise. "Admiral, that's suicide," someone whispered. "Maybe," Reyes replied. "But if we sit here, we die anyway. If we strike first, maybe, just maybe, we live free." The room went silent. Every face turned toward him. Slowly, one by one, they nodded. Project Valkyrie, humanity's last gamble, was approved. The plan was simple and impossible. Fly straight into Valar space and destroy their command world. As preparations began, Reyes took one last walk through the Titan base. He passed the memorial wall, thousands of names etched into steel. He placed Tessa Morgan's tag among them and whispered, "Your fight isn't over yet." Then he turned and walked back toward the hangar. Engines roared as ships began to power up. The air vibrated with purpose once more. The galaxy had thought humanity was finished. The Valar believed fear would crush them. But among the wreckage, among the graves, the human spirit had only grown stronger. And somewhere deep in the stars, the Empire was about to learn a new kind of fear. The fear of those who refuse to die. The void of space stretched endlessly. No stars moved. No sounds carried. Only the human fleet sailed silently toward the heart of the Valar Dominion. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring at the holographic map. Thousands of light years of enemy territory lay ahead. The fleet behind him was battered, small and tired. But their spirit burned brighter than any star. "This is it," Reyes whispered. "The final strike. We either end this war or it ends us." The crew did not speak. They only nodded, eyes fixed on the enemy world glowing in the distance, a giant sphere of metal and light. The Valar capital, the heart of their empire. For centuries it had never been challenged. Now a few thousand humans approached it with courage, desperation, and defiance. "All ships," Reyes ordered. "Power shields to maximum. Load Valkyrie protocols." No hesitation. "Follow my lead." Engines hummed and roared. Lights flickered. The fleet moved as one. From the Valar capital, the Emperor watched. His throne room pulsed with blue energy. "They think they can strike us," he said. "They are insects. Crush them." The first wave of Valar defenses opened fire. Energy beams streaked across the void like deadly lightning. Missiles exploded in bursts of color. Ships shook violently. Humanity responded. Missiles from hidden compartments, stealth fighters darting in patterns the Valar had never seen. The Iron Shield activated, a storm of magnetic and energy fields that twisted enemy beams into nothing. One by one, Valar defenses began to fail. The human fleet advanced like a river of fire, fearless and relentless. "Focus on the command core," Reyes yelled. "We hit it together." Missiles, torpedoes, and plasma storms smashed the central fortress. Explosions shook the hull of the Valar planet. Blue energy flares illuminated the black sky as the Empire's core systems flickered. Inside the Valar capital, the Emperor roared in anger. "Stop them! Destroy them all!" But it was too late. The humans struck like a single living force. Their precision, unpredictability, and sheer will overwhelmed the Valar. Massive sections of the capital tore apart. Ships fell from orbit. The stars themselves seemed to bend under the fury of the attack. Admiral Reyes watched the final moments unfold. "This is for our dead," he said softly. "For the ones who believed in us." As the last energy surge struck, the Valar flagship exploded in blinding light. The shockwave rippled across space. For a moment, nothing moved. Silence returned. Then slowly distant Valar fleets began to retreat. The mighty Empire, the rulers of countless worlds, had learned something new. Humans do not surrender. Humans do not fear death. And humans, when cornered, can burn brighter than stars. Reyes turned to his crew. They wanted us broken. They wanted us gone. And yet, here we stand. The surviving fleet cheered softly, tears glinting in their eyes. Not because the war was over. There would always be battles ahead. But because they had survived impossible odds. Back on Earth, the message spread across every planet, every colony, every radio. When the Empire ordered surrender, humans refused. Children listened in schools. Workers paused at machines. Soldiers in distant outposts felt pride swell in their hearts. Humanity had become a story the galaxy would never forget. And for the Valar Dominion, the lesson burned deep. Fear was not enough. Power was not enough. The human spirit was something no machine, no army, no empire could destroy. In the aftermath, Reyes walked through the fleet hangar. He passed the memorial wall, names of the dead glinting in dim light. He touched one, Tessa Morgan. "You showed them what it means to fight," he whispered. Dr. Hanalei joined him. "Admiral, the galaxy is watching now. Other worlds will rise, inspired by us." Reyes nodded. "Let them watch. Let them learn. Freedom is never given. It is earned." In the silence of space, among the wreckage and smoke, humanity sailed home. Small, battered, but alive. The stars were no longer endless. They were witnesses. They had seen the courage of a species that refused to bow, and somewhere, deep in the void, the Valar fleets turned, leaving the shattered remains of their own empire behind, knowing they had faced something they could not break. Admiral Reyes looked out at the black expanse. He knew the fight was not over, but he smiled, because humanity had learned the greatest truth. No empire can command a heart that refuses to surrender. The war had changed the galaxy forever.